Hello. So I'm here to talk about my personal gift of fear experience, and it would have to be at my job that we just ended for the season. It's out over at a haunt. Well, I manage a certain area, and I manage up to 25 people at most. Well, this night we had about 19 total workers, and so they're getting ready, showing up. Well, I noticed this one of my workers. He's just not acting as like he usually does. But I just like write it off. And then like it was just his wording. It was like stumbling kind of. But he seemed fine at that point, so I just wrote it off. He just got in a car accident, so I was like, man, he'll be fine. And then like after I noticed that, 3 minutes later, another worker comes up to me, is like, hey, I don't know about this guy, there's something that's going on. I said, well, he did get in a car accident today. I think it could have been that. We'll just write it off and see how it goes tonight. If there's any issues, I'll take care of it. So there's two incidents there that I should have been watching and I wasn't. So about an hour after we start working, his nephew comes up, and his nephew's like angry, being very aggressive, and he's like telling me like he just can't stand this one guy in his group that's basically telling him to do his job, and he just doesn't want to do his job. So I go out there and I figure everything out, and I'm looking for uh, the kid that came up. I'm looking for his uncle, and I don't see him. So I asked the people in that group, like, hey, where's this guy? And they're like, oh, he's over here. So I walk over, and this guy is passed out behind the building. So that way he is like, because what we do is they're getting shot at with paintball guns on one side, but not the other. So he's behind the building, not getting shot at all, passed out on the ground. So I go over, I'm like, hey man, you good? I'm gonna need to have you come up with me. And he's not cooperating, like he's completely out of it. And I'm just the manager for this section. And I go up and get the head manager that's talking to the kid already. And I'm like, hey, you need to come out here. We need to get this guy. He's not acting right. So we go out, grab him, and come all the way back up, sit him down on the table, give him a couple bottles of water so that way he can get into it. And we tell him, hey sir, we don't know exactly what you're going through right now, but we're gonna send you home for the night. Well, then me and the head manager, we go off because we have some other issues that we gotta take care of out there in the haunt that's not important. And so as we were gone, a couple of the other workers came up to use the restroom. Well, those two guys decided to pull knives out on those other two workers. So there was that part that like we did not know until later on after all this other stuff went on. So they pulled the knives out on those other two guys, and then after they did all that, they calmed down for a little bit, and then they ended up trying to steal a couple of our masks. They're like $230 per mask. Just the rubber, like we have a rubber mask that goes over the paintball mask, and the paintball mask is another 100 roughly. So these other two workers, they stand off to the side because they've already been threatened, and they're waiting for me to come back up, and they're seeing all this. So when I get back up there, I see them, my other two workers that were just threatened. They tell me everything that's going on. I look over and I sit there and watch them as I'm radioing the owner, radioing the officers to come up to get the situation figured out. Well, the owner comes up first, and then the officers come up about 3 minutes later. Well, the owner's already trying to talk to them, and I told him, hey, let's step back, let's wait till the officers get here to confront them about this stuff. Well, then the kid, these guys, they've already, like, there's a kid that, and the uncle, they both were drinking apparently, and we found their containers that were filled with alcohol and everything. So they were drinking and all of that. That's why they were being aggressive. That's pretty much everything that was going on. That the alcohol was causing it on them, for the most part. So the officers get there, and the kid immediately starts running, and the uncle decides to start taking off all of his like, we have layers out there. He started taking off all of his layers, getting ready to like fight the officers. And one of the 3 officers went and caught the kid, and the other 2 were sitting there trying to calm down the bigger guy and be like, "Hey, you need to calm down. We're giving you options. If you calm down now, most likely the charges won't be pressed against you. Just try to calm down." And after a while, he did not calm down, so they had to pull out their tasers on him to like help the situation go down, like just relax. And it wasn't relaxing at all. So one of the officers puts their taser away, the other one keeps it on him, and the officer has to get him down to the ground. So he pretty much had to tackle him to get him down to the ground to restrain him, so that way he wasn't injured to himself or an injured to the officers, and that way more charges would not be put onto them. So if I was watching all these situations, the uncle came in, he was already stumbling over his words, and I should have taken that like he's already been drinking for the day, and I didn't. And then I had another worker tell me that he was going through stuff. I didn't pay attention to that as well, so there's the second one. The third one would have been when his nephew came up, like being very aggressive. I should have took note of that, and I didn't. And then the fourth would have been when I found him completely passed out. That's when I should have stayed up there with them until the head manager, the owner, and the officers came over to confront them, instead of leaving them all alone. I should have never left them alone. So, I mean, if I was there during the whole time, that could have possibly prevented, and if I was aware, that more could have prevented everything, and just if I would have sent the uncle home, that kid would have never have gotten arrested. He would have never gotten arrested if I just would have been paying attention.